Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa sallallahu ala rasulillah. Welcome to Face to Floor. You can find us at face2floor.wordpress.com. I'm Brother Ali, and inshallah today we're going to do another installment in the series Clarity in the Creed, and inshallah today we're going to talk about atheism. This is a pretty hot topic. A lot of people, it's kind of become a trend, especially amongst a lot of young people, to jump on the atheist bandwagon. And today, inshallah, we're going to make a relatively short video refuting some of the claims of the atheists. And in particular, we're going to focus on establishing the existence of God, the Creator, and also refuting some of the basic claims of the atheist, and showing that the creed at its core, atheism, is an irrational and absurd doctrine. So first, let's start with, from the Quran, the proof among many that God exists. Allah Ta'ala revealed Afillahi shak, which means in Allah's existence there is no doubt. And also Allah Ta'ala revealed in the Quran Qul huwallahu ahad, which means that it is a command from the Creator that for the Prophet to tell the people that God is one, that God exists, and that there is only one God, one Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in brief, let's mention this, that when Muslims are talking about the Creator, we are not talking about some sort of a human being, like a human-like creature. We're not talking about a spirit. We're not talking about something with a size or dimensions or a location. We know that before there was place, there was a Creator. The Creator, Allah Ta'ala, exists without being in the dimension of space, and Allah exists without being in the dimension of time. And when we use the word Allah, it means the Creator in the Arabic language, so that there's no confusion, God willing. Okay, so the elementary rational proof we mentioned from Quran, and the elementary rational proof that there's a Creator is the fact of the existence of the creations. The atheists, now, they don't accept this, although it's very commonsensical, that when we look at the world, and it doesn't have to be, some people will point to the more complex systems. Any system, simple or complex, it indicates that there's a Creator, whether it be a grain of sand, or a pine tree, or an eagle. These creatures, these creations, they cannot bring themselves into being. They cannot assign themselves with their properties, their characteristics. So they are in need of something other than themselves to bring them into existence and to give them their properties. So the atheists now, to show the inconsistency, the absurdity of their claim, we know that the universe is, we are, the creation is. Now for the one who doesn't believe, who does not want to acknowledge the existence of the Creator, he is going, or she is going to have to say that either the universe is self-created or it is beginningless. And both of these claims are logical absurdities. That if one were to claim that the universe were self-created, well, we know that something it's not possible, logically, it is not possible for something to create itself. Because what that statement is saying is that some being, meaning something that is, something that's existing, some being brought itself into being, which makes no sense. Because if this thing is not existing, then it cannot possibly act or produce something. A thing must be to do. That which is non-existent cannot produce something. It can't produce something else, and it can't produce itself. And furthermore, the one who claims that something created itself, they are saying that this thing was originated before it existed, and then after it was already existing, it started to exist, meaning it started to be originated. And this is, again, it's clearly this is a contradiction. You go back to the basic rational proof that the non-existent, what doesn't exist, cannot act and it cannot produce. So that which is non-existent cannot produce itself. This is an absurdity. Now the other position that the atheist will take is that the world, the universe, is eternal. Meaning, and throughout these series, when I use the word eternal, I'm using it with the definition of meaning beginningless. Allah, God, is beginningless and everlasting. But when we talk about the proofs around the beginninglessness of God, if you wish, the eternality of God, we're talking about God existing without a beginning. We're using the word eternal to mean beginningless. So if someone says that this universe, this creation, is beginningless, this also leads to absurdities. What's called in logic infinite regression. That if somebody says that before the present, before today or the present, that there was an infinite amount of time, that time stretched for infinity before the present, then we know logically, rationally, that it would not be possible to reach the present, because the present is the culmination, is the limit of what came before. So for example, this is not real, it cannot exist. But if someone said that he had a row of dominoes that literally stretched on forever, this is not true, But to show the absurdity of the claim of the atheist, that this person were to say that, and then so if you were to tip over the first of those dominoes in a chain, and then those dominoes start falling in sequence forever, quote unquote, allegedly forever, going as this chain keeps falling backwards. You could never reach the end of this chain, this hypothetical alleged chain, because it is allegedly infinite. You could never reach the beginning of that chain once you tipped over the first domino, and then that chain reaction allegedly goes on forever. You could never reach the beginning. So then, now let's reverse it. That the present is. And if someone says that there is a series of events or an amount of time that stretched on for infinity before the present, well, it would not be possible to reach the present. It would not be possible to traverse, to cross this period of infinity. Just as you cannot cross a chain of dominoes that allegedly stretch forever, you could not cross that series of events from the infinite past, as they say, from the infinite past to reach the present. Because the present, as we said, is the culmination, is the limit of what came before. So if that chain of time, in this case, were to reach the present, and indeed it does reach the present, but according to their model, if it were to reach the present, then the present would be the end or the limit of the infinity that came before. But they just called it infinite, and that which is infinite would not come to an end. So from these two proofs, we know that the universe cannot be self-originated, self-created, and that the universe cannot be beginningless. So what are we left to conclude if we want to be rational? We have to conclude that the universe is originated. And so, since the universe is originated, the creations, as we say, the creations are originated. Since the universe is originated, it requires something other than itself to originate it. And the one who originated the universe would not be similar to that which is originated, because we just said the universe is composed of events. It is composed of happenings. And those happenings require something other than themselves to bring them into being. So the one who originated the universe would not be a happening, would not be an event, would not be something that wasn't and then started to exist. Wasn't existing and then started to exist. The Creator would not be attributed with such. So we know that the Creator exists, that the Creator's existence is beginningless. And as we said, once we know that God's existence is beginningless, then it leads to follow that God does not resemble the creations. Okay, now that we establish that, then we can go on and establish other basic proofs regarding the existence of the Creator. Okay. Now, let's mention another point. Some of the atheists, they will assert that the universe just happened by chance. So let's look at this claim of chance. If you were to put in a bag, this is a paper bag, if you were to put into a bag 10 cards, 1 through 10, and then you were to shake the bag up, what's the chance of pulling out number 1 first, and then number 2, and then number 3, and then number 4, and so on in sequential order? Now, if you think about it, you might think, well, maybe this is like 1 in 50, 1 in 200, maybe 1 in 1,000. This is what's called permutation in mathematics. So basically the formula would be, what's the chance of taking out number 10 first? It will be 1 in 10. How many cards are left? 9. So then what will be the chance of taking out number 9 second? It will be 1 in 9. What's the chance of taking out number 8 third? It will be 1 in 8. And so on down the chain. When you do the math out, the chance of pulling these numbers out in consecutive order, 1 through 10, is 1 out of 3,628,800. So that's the chance. Now this is not a complex activity to reach into a bag and pull out 10 cards. Yet the chance of pulling out those 10 cards in sequential order is 1 in more than 3.6 million. Now let's add 5 more cards. So now you have 15 cards in the bag. What's the chance of pulling out those 15 cards in sequential order? So and think about it. What's the chance? 15 cards. Again, this is not a complex activity. Yet to pull those cards out in sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and on to 15. What's the chance of pulling them out in sequential order? Think about it for a moment. What's the chance? The chance of doing so is 1 out of 1,307,674,368,000. These are just 15 cards in a plastic bag, pulling them out in random order that you're looking at. The chances of doing so is greater than 1 in a trillion. So the atheists now, if you told someone, oh yeah, I do this all the time, I practice this, and without cheating or anything like that, and you say, oh yeah, I can reach into a container and I can pull out 15 cards in sequential order. I usually do this in the evening like 15 out of 20 times. They will say either you're cheating or you're a liar. They will say because statistically they would regard this as an impossibility. Statistically, they would regard this as an impossibility. So you take into consideration something that is not very complex by itself, meaning just reaching into a bag and pulling out cards and not many cards in the bag. And yet they will, when they study the creation and they look at the incredible complexity of even something very simple. In their model, when they talk about cells and they talk about DNA, something relatively small, the complexity of even the cell in their model is itself mind-boggling in complexity and intricacy. And if you extend that and you look at, for example, the complexity of a creature that's not very sophisticated like a frog, it is something that it is mind-blowing to take this into consideration. Allah revealed in Surah Al-Mulk, الذي خلق سبع سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور. And this verse, it tells us that Allah is the creator of the heavens, and that you see throughout creation, you see throughout it, the consistency, and you see order throughout the creation. So when we talk about we know that Allah Ta'ala is the creator of everything, that which is simple and that which is complex. As a grain of sand cannot bring itself into being, as we said, as a pine tree by itself, which is made of, if we use their model, made up of cells and the like, that these cells cannot designate themselves with their properties, with their characteristics. They need something other than themselves to bring to make it exist. And this is, as we know as Muslims, that this is the Creator. So when we look at something relatively simple like a grain of sand, which is made out of silicon, that it cannot make itself. The tree cannot make itself. The bird cannot make itself. And that which composes the bird or the tree, for instance, the particles or the sand, the particles that compose these entities, those particles are devoid of knowledge. Those particles in and of themselves are devoid of power. Those particles are devoid of will, meaning that they can specify themselves with certain attributes. No, they cannot. They do not have will. They cannot specify themselves with certain characteristics. So this is very clear and from a very elementary common sense point of view that the creations cannot create. They are made of particles. Those particles themselves cannot give themselves their characteristics. So the creations require something other than themselves to give them existence. And let's mention one other point here, inshallah, a couple of other points. That the atheists, they pride themselves a lot with science, and they do their calculations. Their calculations are not creating. Calculating and creating are two different things. So, yes, we can calculate that when the air temperature from experience, and this is important because what the scientists are doing is looking at a series of observations, and then from that, drawing certain conclusions regarding cause and effect. And in Islam, the Muslims, we know that Allah is the creator of the causes and the effects. Very simple example. We look at water. Water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Why does it freeze at that temperature? Or let's say, why do we expect it to freeze at that temperature? Because through a multitude of observations, we expect that water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. From an Islamic point of view, we know that the water does not make itself freeze at 32 degrees, meaning the water does not say to itself, I choose to freeze or be frozen at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And the air temperature does not say, I choose to make the water freeze at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if they talk about the slowing of particles and things of this nature, still, these things are not giving themselves their own properties. But we can calculate or anticipate from a multitude of observations that when the air temperature is 32 degrees under normal circumstances, then we expect the water to freeze. But the cold air does not create, in this sense, we don't create meaning to bring it into being, does not create the freezing in the water. Allah is the creator. And for Muslims, the recognition, for instance, of the miracles that were performed by the prophets, the mu'jizat, and the karamat, the extraordinary acts of the ultra-righteous, that these things are not impossible. They are contrary to custom, contrary to the norm. But Muslims understand when we say, La ilaha illallah, there is no creator other than Allah. So that which occurs, whether it is the norms, meaning things that we are familiar with, things that we are accustomed to, or that which is extraordinary, all of that is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's only one creator. Allah is the one who brings things into being. So in conclusion, Muslims, we believe in one creator who exists, who does not need or resemble the creations. The creations themselves did not bring themselves into being, and they are not eternal. So the creations are dependent upon something other than themselves to make them exist. And we say the one who brought the universe into being, the creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the one who has originated and maintains and sustains the creations. And that the one that did so and does so, meaning originated the creations and sustains the creations, is not a body, is not any sort of an object, is not an image. So whatever you imagine in your mind, the Creator is different from that. That the Creator is not subject to time. That the Creator is not in a location or direction. That the Creator does not have dimensions. So when we speak of God, we are not talking about another type of body. Because when we look at the universe and it's composed of objects and particles which compose those objects, so we know from that, since the universe is composed of objects, then we know the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not an object. The creations are composed of things that exist in different locations. We know the Creator is not similar to the creations, therefore the Creator is not in a location. And likewise direction. Before there were objects, there was a Creator. And direction is merely the comparison of the location of one object, the position of one object in relation to the position of another object. Allah is not an object. Allah is not in a location. Therefore we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists without being in a direction. And the verses that some people do, they misconstrue, and they believe that God is literally located far above our heads. The ulu, in Arabic the word is ulu, the highness of Allah Ta'ala is not of a literal direction, but one of greatness and status. Just like even in English, in the old days they would refer to the kings, they would say, Your Royal Highness. And they were not referring to the king being in the highest location, but rather that the king in their system, in their society, was regarded as having the highest status. So when we say that God has the ulu, we mean that Allah has the highest, the greatest status, and obviously it's not referring to being in a direction, because the Creator of direction is not in a direction. Walhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala rasulillah. For more information, please see us at face2floor.wordpress.com, and also please click on the like, and please share these videos throughout your social media network. Please share them with friends, family, and in your social media network. Walhamdulillah wa sallallahu ala rasulillah.